So North Carolina, they're going to make the cross-country road trip. They're going to travel across multiple time zones to play against Cal in what's going to be a 10:30 game happening on Friday night on ESPN. That is 10:30 in the evening for those of you that are on the East Coast, doing all of this just to play a conference game. Definitely, I hate how conference realignment is right now, but that's just where we're at in terms of where things are. But listen, both of these teams are in desperate need for a win. Both of these teams are coming in with just one win in their last three games, both 1-2 in their last few games. Both teams in particular have looked anemic, but they've looked bad in different ways, right? So North Carolina, for example, we've seen a numerous number of distractions for this North Carolina team, particularly around Bill Belichick. It seems like there has not been very many good returns for this program right now. It's gotten so bad to the point where you see both Bill Belichick himself as well as the athletic director for North Carolina to come out and say, "Hey, we're committed to this university, and the university is committed to North Carolina." So when you get those comments, or you have to have someone reiterate that they are committed to a university, or if they're committed to a coach, that usually is not a very good sign at all. And I don't blame them. North Carolina, they are 0-3 in power conference matchups. Their only two wins is against FCS Richmond, as well as Charlotte, who is one of the worst teams in the American. That is North Carolina's two wins on the year. When they've played against programs that have a pulse, they've been dominated by TCU. That was back in the first week of the season. And then just last couple of weeks, they've been dominated by UCF. And then last weekend, dominated by Clemson. It's been a constant shade of domination going down for North Carolina. But as I mentioned before, Cal is also kind of reeling, but they're reeling for different reasons, right? We figured that Cal might have had its struggles for this year because of the amount of talent that they've lost in the transfer portal. Losing a guy like Jaden Ott, losing a guy like Fernando Mendoza, who now is at Indiana. He might be a Heisman candidate for all we know. But at least with Cal, they at least still believe in the coaching staff, right? And we can at least point and say that they at least won a couple of games. But, a couple of their last performances, their last three performances, ever since they got a ton of attention in terms of, hey, with this 3-0 start, look at the rest of the schedule. They could really make a trip to the playoff happen. Ever since those comments came out and a lot more people were paying attention to Cal, they have folded under the pressure of themselves. They lost to San Diego State 34-0, right? They just a terrible loss. They barely beat Boston College on the road. Granted, it was a road game, so those cross-country road trips are always really difficult. But for Boston College, they have not shown a lot of life either. Boston College now 1-5, and then Duke came into their building and Duke dominated Cal 45-21. And the thing about Cal too is that they do have young pieces, particularly at the quarterback position. Now, am I going to try to say this quarterback's name out loud? No, because I know I am absolutely going to butcher it. But JKS, that's what just what we're calling him, true freshman. He has started the whole year for this Cal team. And while he has at least made them more hopeful for the future, he's thrown for 1,500 yards, he has also been prone to quite a few mistakes, especially since entering conference play, particularly in conference play. He's looked very anemic, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. His QBR that's tracked by ESPN right now is in the 100s. He's currently 108. So he is in that bottom 30 to 35 starting quarterbacks in the entirety of the FBS. So while he's had shown flashes and has shown some really good moments, at the same time, he has shown some tremendous mistakes. And that's really like the case with really this whole team. Is really the, I guess, a microcosm of what's going on at Cal. Like, there's pieces at Cal that if they can find a way to keep them, then there is a lot to be really hopeful for in the future, right? But at the same token, it's just because of the fact that it is a younger team, this is a team that's going to be prone to being a lot more inconsistent, and you have more variability in results, and that's what we've seen with the San Diego State result, as well as with the Duke result. You do also get some good results, like beating Minnesota by multiple scores, and I think Minnesota is not a bad team at all. I think that's actually a solid football team out there in Minneapolis, right? So they've beaten at least one solid team out of the Big Ten, and that does really need to be mentioned. Which leads me to my final point. As I guess before I make my final point, let me just go ahead and pull up the model. So you see with what the model is tracking right now. You see the current game line, and I'm recording this Sunday morning. As with the game happening on Friday, so the FanDuel is going to probably change as we get closer to kickoff. The model line is not going to change by any means. It's more of an expectation-based model. So Cal is only listed as a 1-point favorite, while North Carolina is listed as a 12.5-point underdog on FanDuel. I think even with all the distractions, if the team is still locked in, and if they still believe in Bill Belichick, if they're not giving up on him, then I think there is truly a path for North Carolina to pull this upset off. You think about Bill Belichick's entire coaching career, whether it be at the NFL with the Patriots just think mainly with the Patriots, and a little bit of time thrown in there with the Browns, and right now with North Carolina. Just take a look at his entire coaching career. One of the best things that Bill Belichick is at is really making opposing quarterbacks that are either true freshmen or maybe they're rookies in the NFL, and really putting them in a blender. Bill Belichick is very good against those types of quarterbacks. And that's clear with what Cal has a true freshman who has had his moments and had flashes in conference play, but let's be honest, has also struggled through conference play tremendously. And it's not just with the offense and with the inconsistencies of JSC or JKS, excuse me. Defense also has had its fair share of problems as well. Really in the two of the last 3 games, they've given up more than 30 points. We thought the Cal defense is at least like a decent squad, which for all intents and purposes, at least the defense was supposed to be okay. And it looked like that projection was going to hold up initially, but after what we saw in the last 3 games, it might be a completely different story, and we might have actually seen Cal's defense actually regress a little bit, as it turns out. So with that being said, because of the fact that Bill Belichick is going up against a true freshman quarterback, Cal has struggled tremendously defensively over the last few weeks as well. I do think that there is actually a recipe for success for North Carolina to get right. And while there's a lot of issues for both teams that are going to need to be addressed moving forward, I think that there is a path for North Carolina to actually pull this upset off, even though they're a 12.5-point underdog, almost a 2-touchdown underdog. Which means I'm actually going to go ahead. I'm going to go on a whim here. I'm not actually just going to agree with the model's assessment with this game should be a lot tighter than what it's made out to be. But I'm actually going to go so far as to say I think Bill Belichick finds a way to pull it out. They pull this upset off. They win it outright, beating Cal 30-23. Now, whether that's in the best interest of North Carolina from a program perspective in the long term, I think that's a separate conversation. And I think it will be best for North Carolina if they went in a different direction from a coaching perspective. But it will be one of those things where, at least like in the moment, North Carolina can pull this win off. And I think they will. I think they beat Cal. I think it's going to be a much closer game than the Duke matchup, though. So I'm going to roll with Cal losing. And it's going to be 30 to 23 in favor of North Carolina Tar Heels.